Hello, this is Novels and Bits podcast, and you are welcome to our podcast, Nibber. Today we're doing a new story. This could be us by Kennedy Ryan. I haven't done a Kennedy Ryan story on Novels and Bits, although I have done 2 stories of hers on the other podcast, Irma's Galley. Either ways, you are in for a treat. This could be us. Oh my gosh. I'm going to give you the background of this later, but right now let's just jump into the story, okay? So now Judah and soon to be ex-wife Tremaine, they are talking with a child specialist to devise the best means to take care of their autistic 12-year-old twin sons, Adam and Aaron. Adam is on level 1, while Aaron is on level 3. It means Adam's autism can't easily be observed, but he needs as much attention as Aaron, who speaks so little. Adam, he needed potty training up until 7 years old. He tends to have seizures, sometimes associated with his tuberous sclerosis. Aaron has severe apraxia and can never quite get a hold on words. His preferred means of communication is visual aid. Now, if all those things sounded like information load, let me quickly explain. Judah and his wife Tremaine, they are seated with a child specialist in their sitting room, and they are about to get divorced. However, because they have autistic twin boys, these boys are 12 years old, they need to actually be very delicate about how they separate. Because one thing about autistic children is they need pattern. They need that safety of pattern, or they have a meltdown. And we're going to see instances of that. The 2 twin boys, in as much as they both have autism, they're different levels. Adam is on level 1 of autism, which means his autism looks like a normal kid on the outside. He goes to school, he interacts with others. He looks okay, like nothing is wrong with him. But he actually needs as much care as his twin brother Aaron, whose autism is so noticeable. That is, he has 0 social skills. He's not even interested in learning social skills. And that one, he finds it hard to talk. You get, like, talking is so hard for him. He just clamps up. That condition is called apraxia. And his preferred means of communicating to you is by showing you pictures, for you to get the idea of what he wants to say. That's why they had to involve a child specialist. Adam's own self is that he actually needed potty training, but at 7 years old, he would still have issues of peeing on himself. Do you understand? But that's part of the autism. And it was embarrassing, and kids would make fun of him, not realizing he had a special case. So they need a child specialist to help them figure out how can they divorce and go their separate ways without triggering their children. Okay? That's what Judah and his soon-to-be ex-wife Tremaine are all about. Now, this is a personal commentary I'm adding to what we just talked about. While I understand this is a medical condition, this autism thing, it still makes me so friggin' mad at the devil. It's not okay. Yes, autism, we treat with compassion. Just like right now, I have a pain in my gum, and I know the God's power has been released to heal me, and I claim it. So yes, it takes a while for it to get from spiritual realities down to physical manifestation. Sometimes happens, right? But regardless, autism, yes, we see people who are compassionate and all those things, but then we grab the healing of God and insist until we see this person's life changed. Because honestly, if I have an autistic kid, I'll treat them with all the love, all the care, spend all the money to get them all the support they need, while I keep standing on God's word, believe it, that this devil will let go. You understand? Because it's the devil. Please, I needed to do this rant. Drive out that demon, please. Now, back to our story. It was originally intended that Tremaine is going to keep the boys during the week and Judah will keep them for the weekend, which means Tremaine is going to stay in their house that they have established a family in for 12 years. But Aaron, when they call in the boys to decide who they want to stay with during the week, is it going to be Tremaine or is it going to be Judah? Aaron shows an image where Judah fell asleep while reading them a storybook, like he and his brother Adam. What Aaron types out is stay with me. I mean, Judah even feels bad, as far Tremaine is going to feel like the boys prefer him to her, but she's like, nah, it's okay. If there's one thing Judah and his soon-to-be ex-wife have, that is so beautiful, they have a beautiful friendship. So for that reason, they have to flip the arrangement. That's Judah is going to be the person to remain at the house with the boys, while Tremaine will move out. Now, this is a personal commentary. Judah and Tremaine, like I just pointed out, they have a great friendship, right? And their marriage probably failed due to neglect. because of a lot of things. The thing is, they don't know where the passion stopped or where they became simply roommates or co-parents. They were co-parenting because of their son's condition. These are things that drive couples apart. You don't know where the passion ended, but both of you stayed married because of your children. And now it's dawning on you people that if you want bigger lives than this, it was actually Tremaine that came to Judah with, hey, we need to get a divorce. This is not working. And he was actually relieved that she brought it up first, because if he's been feeling that way, but he's someone that we're going to see more about Judah. Judah is the protector kind, the kind that gives you boundaries to figure yourself out. And he's not going to come on you with something he even feels is better until he just kind of creates the conditions around you so that you figure that out by yourself. If only a lot of real life men were this cool and mature. But oh well, people differ. Now, 3 years later, we meet Soledad, the main female lead in this story, because this is Soledad and Judah's love story. And OMG, I don't know how to describe the kind of baggage both of them have, because Judah has twin boys who has autism, and we'll see just how much baggage that is. And Soledad, she has 3 daughters, and 3 years later, after Judah's divorce, she's still married, right? She's married to her husband, has a kid. So we're like, personally, I was thinking, how the heck is the love story supposed to come out of this? So that's why she really classified the story as slow burn, because the couple did not end. They didn't get together early, but you wouldn't even notice because so much is happening. And I was bawling and I was feeling all the feelings. And this is not even a novel targeted at my age bracket. This is a novel that it's targeted at people probably in their 30s, 40s, people who've seen life and seen the curveballs life can throw at someone. And I'm someone like who just got to my mid-20s and I'm relating so hard. I'm learning. That's what this is. So anyhow, let's just switch to Soledad's POV and see what's going on in her life. So Soledad is supposed to attend an event with her husband, Edward. It has to do with his office things. It's a Christmas party, end of the year Christmas party that his boss is throwing at his house. So Edward wants her to wear a red dress instead of the gold one that Soledad wants to wear. Edward claims that the gold gown is too revealing. And Edward is stressed about a curse. Some guy called Cross in the finance department. Apparently this Cross guy has been on Edward's matter for a year, snooping around. So just informs him that, see, if you have nothing to hide, this guy should not bother you now. And to this thing, Edward's eye twitches. She doesn't think of it. And she just continues assuring him that, don't worry, don't think of that cursed person. Just think of how I'm going to ride you later. That is when we come back. At this thing, Edward immediately gets distant, claiming that he's stressed about work. And all she can think about is laying him, making love to him. And she's not telling him, excuse you, it's been 2 months since we've been last intimate. I refuse to be ashamed of my urges, of my sexuality, of how, that I want these things, okay? I mean, she's married. She shouldn't even be ashamed of it. You get? Now, to this thing, Edward makes a snide comment that she should focus on tightening down there. Excuse you? She pushed out 3 children for him. 3 beautiful daughters she's raising for him. And he dares to make a snide comment that down there is not as tight as it used to be. Excuse you? And the last pregnancy tore her up. She had to be sewn up. Her and Edward has been together for 18 years. They spent 16 years married. And this is what he tells her. She is so pissed. She doesn't want to go anywhere with him. She's not looking at him like you who call your assistant's name Amber in your sleep. And then you explain to me that is because you've been up to so much work. Edward pleads with her, sort of. She's angry. And as retaliation, she refuses to wear the red dress he suggests. She wears the gold dress she wants to. And heels that she knows is going to bruise her for later. Mind you, this couple is wealthy. Because when the scene opened up, they're in their own walk-in wardrobes. And they're all designer things. They're Chanel, Burberry, Birkins, even the Nike. Think of all of them, designer labels. This couple, they own it. They're rich. They're loaded. Okay? And they're black and gorgeous. Edward is not black though. Edward is white. Well, Soledad is mixed. Black, white, kind of mixed. Mostly, she looks small black. She's really light-skinned. Now, when Soledad comes down the stairs, her 15-year-old daughter, Lupe, is downstairs. Lupe has red hair, green eyes, tan olive skin. She's model material. I mean, people have approached Lupe several times on the road for her to model, but Lupe is not interested in those things. She looks the most white out of the three daughters. Lupe's younger sisters, the two other girls, look more black than white, but Lupe looks more white than black. Lupe also, she's a very sensitive, teenager. She senses the tension between her parents, although so is the kind of person that she does not want a child to grow up before a child has to. She doesn't bring her daughter into those things. I tell her, don't worry, me and your dad are cool. We'll sort out our thing, okay? Edward in the car, he still scolds So for her dress choice. He doesn't want to draw attention to himself, so he claims. Now, Edward works for Cowpot. It's a cookware company, one of the biggest in the state. So had a complaint about the frying pan that is too small. We want to be able to fry 4 chicken breasts, not 3 at once. And some of it was flaking. So when she made that complaint, the husband was like, why would you say that type of thing now, Edward? But so when she made that complaint to the woman in charge of that frying pan, when they saw the previous time, and the woman says again now, remembers that feedback. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. I actually reported it back to the team and we sorted that out. That's what the woman is saying. That is Edward's colleague. This woman is also the daughter of the boss, of Edward's boss. So the woman is quite influential in the company, and she likes Soledad. Now, while they're in the party, Edward sights his secretary, Amber, flits over to the secretary's side ASAP. And this secretary, Amber, she's in revealing clothes that Edward seems to be looking at her, and he's appreciating it. But he was claiming that he wants his wife to not wear revealing clothes. Oga. Anyhow, from experience, because this is not the first time she's attending this Christmas party, So knows that the food will be bad. She's not even eager as she stands at the buffet. But anyhow, while she's standing there at the buffet, she notices a man standing by the door. He has a commanding aura. He's probably a few inches over 6'5", which is really tall, while she's 5'4". I mean, she's a small, curvy person, but he is tall. He is handsome, has a commanding aura. I really need to find characters that fit this still so bad. He's just watching everybody, but then his gaze lands on her. When his gaze lands on her, he's not scrutinizing as far, who is this babe, He is looking at her with appreciation. So she just kind of looks away as far, I'm still a married woman. What's this thing happening between me and this random guy? But next thing, he's actually standing beside her. And he's filling his plates, and which gives him a chance to engage in conversation. It's harmless, the conversation that they're having, but the feels, the chemistry, okay? So when he asks her about her favorite food, she mentions it's carne cocida, that is beef stew from Puerto Rico. She makes it for her family. She was actually giving me a heads up that the food is not going to be good. And he now asks her, you cook? You're any good in the kitchen? She's like, well, I try, which led him to ask her what her favorite food is and all those things. So he learns that she has a husband, that she actually came here with her husband, because he was thinking that she's an employee at Calput's, and he's wondering why they've not met before at the company. But she's like, no, I'm actually here with my husband. And the moment she says that, disappointment flashes in his eyes. So what the guy ends up saying, this guy that Soledad does not know his name is Lucky Man, like calls Soledad's husband Lucky. Soledad in her mind is like, well, I do not think so. Because Edward has been so stingy with his attention, with conversation, with interest. Now, Edward, seeing this guy, whoever this guy is, with Soledad, he quickly comes back to Soledad's side and says cross. And you can feel the hostility between the two men. This is the cross that Edward was complaining to Soledad about while they were home. That this guy has been on his issue for years, snooping around. This cross person introduces himself to Soledad as Jonah Cross. My name is Jonah Cross. This is Jonah that we already met, before we went into Soledad's perspective. Soledad and her husband Edward are seated at a table themselves. And Edward is gloating that, oh my gosh, that Cross is always so icy as far. He always looks like a man that cannot feel any emotions, but I caught him staring at your ass. That's what he's telling his wife, Soledad. And he's not like, well, Soledad, I'm glad you wore that gold dress after all. I mean, it's worth it. If it made that cold guy look at you like this, I mean, I have something that he does not have. Do you see how very stupid this man is being? Anyhow, we shall continue with our story. But Soledad is thinking that Judah is not cold. I mean, that's not the vibe she picked from him in that brief encounter. She just thinks his focus, his intent, he's impenetrable. So cannot stand that Edward's gloated over how Jonah was checking her out. So he just escapes to use the restroom. And there, when she's done, she's staring at herself in the mirror of the restroom and she's thinking to herself, my entire adult life, I have been with one man. And right now, she's somewhere in her mid to late 30s. Edward's comments about down there is making her doubt that maybe she's not going to be wanted again. That if by any reason, for any reason, Edward leaves her, nobody's going to want her again. Because she spent such a long time with one man. And she doesn't think any other man is going to find her desirable. For all those thoughts, this is what she does. She draws in a masculine breath. She fluffs the hair around her shoulders. She's like, she's gonna have her midlife breakdown, just like every other self-respecting woman in Skyland. This story is based in Skyland, a gated community, kind of an estate. She'll have that breakdown in the privacy of her home with a good wine to drown her doubts without fear of public humiliation. This is why I like Kennedy Ryan's books. This is how you behave like a mature woman. Because I'm not a very private person. If I am exploding at any point at my partner and we're outside, sometimes I always get like a third person involved. That's a maturity that I need to have like since yesterday. So I need to have that maturity of no third parties. Every couple argues, figure your thing out together. Don't start dragging people up and down. It's not like they care. Everybody's handling their own thing. Okay. On Soledad's way out of the restroom, she sees Amber, that same secretary that her husband Edward was admiring. She sees that Amber lady with a man groping her ass. Amber claims that, oh, this is my cousin. Sol is like, okay, since when did cousins get so handsy? But she ignores them and just like, yeah, carry on people, not me, not my place to George, okay? So she's passing the library when she notices a teenager of about 15 there playing with Rubik cubes. You know Rubik cubes, and that thing you turn around, it has different colors and you have to make it such that all the colors align on every side. So something about the way the teenage boy looks at her and this back down feels like an invitation. So she sits across him in this library. He doesn't talk much. He just tells her Aaron. We know Aaron, that is Jonah's other son, the one that has level 3 autism, that doesn't talk really, still goes to the trouble of telling her his name, Aaron. She shares her name. So sometime soon, Aaron actually shares a Rubik cube with Sol. So she's just doing it and she's just laughing at how much of a mess she's making. Like she's not as good as Aaron at this thing. Sometime soon, Jonah shows up there. That's when she knows, oh my gosh, Aaron, he's your son. And Jonah is very particular to point out that his ex, as far he's not married, his ex isn't here and their other son, Adam, is with her. So Sol suspects Aaron is autistic, but she can't be sure. Sol's middle daughter, Ines, used to sit with an autistic kid at lunch. Her teacher asked her to. So Edward shows up there in this library and tells Soledad that it's time to leave. Aaron looks at her. A frown is pinching his brows. Frown pinching his brows is him concentrating on trying to remember Soledad's name. And he actually says it's Soledad. And she smiles because she feels special that this kid doesn't feel like he does this thing for anybody, but he went through that effort of remembering my name and saying it. So now it's dinner time at Soledad's house a few days later. Soledad's youngest, 11 years old Lottie, has gym practice the next day. Lupe is attending public school with Deja, Yasmin's daughter. Yasmin is one of Soledad's best friends. She has two best friends. That is Yasmin and Hendrix. We're going to see Hendrix's story next year. Yasmin's story came out last year. It blew up on TikTok before I let go. And maybe I might get a chance to tell you later, but I'm just so terrible at reading books. That's why I'm just starting with This Could Be Us. Anyhow, Lupe, her 15-year-old daughter, and Deja, Yasmin's 15-year-old daughter, they're attending the same public school. And Ina is 13 and Lottie, they're in the same private school. Like I've mentioned earlier, Lupe is the person that looks very white, but Lupe loves diversity, embracing colored culture the most out of her sisters that even look more black than her. Edward is cranky at this dinner. He starts swearing at the table, which is against the rules that he and Soledad has set down in their home. So Edward mentions that curse being after him and causing him all the more stress at work is why he's like this. To this thing now, because Edward keeps complaining about this curse, and how bad he is. Sol is like, Judah is not that bad. Because she's met the guy. So, but her blotting it is now making Edward see red. Like, how can you side a person that you just knew for like how many minutes over me? Only 10 minutes at the party and you know him better than me? So he says many disrespectful things to her in front of their children, and he gets up to retreat to his man cave behind the house. Saul follows him out, confronting him over how he spoke to her in front of their children. So to this thing, Edward now starts saying, did I lie? You think I didn't see the way he watched you? He wanted you. So she now uses very plain words to reply him and said, is that why you deigned to scream me that night when we got home? Because the villain of the story in your head wanted me? Is that the only way you can get it up these days? The villain Viagra must have worn off because you haven't been back since. So you get what this thing means. They came back from that party and he slept with her for the first time in 2 months just because Judah wanted her. Do you get me? Now they're going to say more because they're having this heated conversation, but then the doorbell goes. This is late in the evening, right? The FBI, they're here to arrest Edward. He's so sure this is Judah Cross's doing. Agent Spivey has it in 5-line documents with a signature that's the warrant that they have to sign to arrest Edward. He's been arrested for embezzlement, words like affidavits, search, seizure, investigation, subpoenaed bank records for feature. They mess up the house in his arrest. They break a jar, now, because Edward puts up a struggle. Neighbors pour out to the front to watch. That is so embarrassing for someone like Sol that does not like her personal business aired out. Edward keeps shouting it's a mistake. Asks Sol to call Brunson, his friend, and their lawyer too. So Inez runs her dad. Like out of all her 3 girls, Inez, the middle daughter, is the daddy's girl. She runs her dad. She's crying. The other 2 girls too are crying. So Sol takes her daughters to the kitchen, where Inez is now like, it's all that Judah Cross's fault. You don't know the Judah Cross, but Shash is the daddy's girl, so anything daddy says is correct. Sol has to slam hand on table and she talks to them. She tells them they'll be fine because she'll take care of them. All the plans that they have for next day, Lottie's, gym practice, this person going to school, nobody's going anywhere. Now, the 3 girls, they just go to a room by themselves and Sol is hearing them. Sol has 2 older sisters too. And Hannah's sisters would do the same thing that her daughters are doing if they ever faced such a similar situation. I mean, they did that so often in other situations growing up. Like 3 of them would just huddle together and provide comfort to one another. Now, the doorbell goes. It's actually Yasmin and Hendrix. That is Soledad's best friend. Hendrix is blunt as usual, but Yasmin is more subdued. I mean, they've been suspecting that one of these days Edward would get himself in trouble. Hendrix has never liked Edward. You get. But Yasmin, Hendrix is single. Yasmin is married, happily married. And she's the one that is most subdued. The news has gone around Skyland. Edward's arrest. That is Atlantis community is also in the news. So Calpot, that is the company that Edward works for, is one of the biggest employers in the state. $6 million may not bankrupt them, but it's still a lot of money too. I mean, Hendrix is the one talking. That's what the news has been saying. Oh my gosh. Soledad is like, what? He stole $6 million freaking dollars? Now, this home that she'd put so much into could actually be lost because of Edward's mistake. This is their own house. The ceiling is covered. She chose that kind of ceiling. There is Calcutta marble for the counters. There is a Viking oven. There is bifold doors leading to the patio. All these things that I don't know the meaning of, but they sound really fancy and nice. I need to find them out sometime if I'm interested in designing my own home, which I am. Anyhow, those things could be lost because her husband decided to be a thief instead of being content. Edward is accused of embezzling. And he's a new finance guy that is Judah Cross. That he's only been with Calport a year. But he just knew something was off about Edward from day one and actually followed up and found evidence that Edward has been stealing from the company for years. So feels like a fool for not heeding Edward's warning about Judah. So low-key, she's actually feeling now that Judah Cross is actually responsible for what's happening to her family. So she gets on the phone with Brunson, the lawyer, their family's lawyer and Edward's friend. So Brunson is telling her that bail might be delayed because Edward's a flight risk. She hasn't heard from Edward. Apparently, he used the one call he's entitled to in prison, not to call his family to reassure them, but to call someone else. Because she's like, I've not heard from Edward. Normally they give you one call to use and call somebody. He granted you. Uncle did not call his family to reassure them. That's how low he rates them. Ah, God, the disrespect that Sol faced at this man's hand. Now, Sol wants to bake for her daughters, but she wakes up to news trucks parked outside. Calpot is the premier cookware brand in the nation and is buzzworthy that its top executive embezzled $6 million. Sol and her daughters are not going to be leaving the house. So how are they going to do food this day now? So, anyhow, we shall continue in the next episode. Let us see how very stupid men knows how to disgrace themselves. It's not the women that are disgracing themselves. I know. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Please share the podcast, leave a rating, leave a review. I'll see you next episode. Bye.